Welcome to the unsettling. If you're new to the channel, we discuss any and all heinous and gruesome, yet interesting cases found around the globe. In today's episode, we will be talking about the strange death of Francisca Marquinez. Down in sunny South Florida, right outside of Fort Lauderdale, in a city called Margate, tragedy struck Francisca Marquinez and her family. Margate is like any other suburban area in the United States and is occupied by all walks of life. The date is October 26, 2015. Yelling and arguments ring from apartment 205 in the Royal Palm complex. Francisca Marquinez and her boyfriend, Richard Patterson, were in a big fight. After only 4 months of being together, Francisca Marquinez wanted to end her relationship with Richard Patterson. But like all couples do, the argument eventually ended and they carried on with their lives. Or so it seemed, because 2 days after that argument, Francisca Marquinez was found dead and she had suffocated to death. Being the prime suspect of the crime, Richard Patterson was arrested 3 days later in his Margate apartment, located only a couple doors down from Francisca, and eventually brought to trial. Patterson was charged with second-degree murder. From an outside point of view, this case was as good as solved. A struggling relationship leads to a fit of rage, which eventually leads to the murder of a significant other, which is something that is not out of the ordinary. But what is out of the ordinary is Richard Patterson's defense. What you're about to hear is what Richard Patterson claimed to have happened that terrible night. After their argument, a couple days had passed, and everything was presumably back to normal. Late on the night of October 28th, Richard and Francisca began getting romantic with one another. One thing led to another, and Francisca began giving Richard fellatio, which is where she eventually suffocated and died. However, according to Richard, he did not know that she was dead or passed out, and proceeded to go to the bathroom for roughly 15 minutes. Upon leaving the bathroom, Richard began to panic, because the woman he loved was now laying lifeless on the bed. Richard wasn't sure what had happened, but in that moment, he believed that his penis was the cause of Francisca's death, and that its large size cut off airflow to her for so long that she choked to death. Richard moved quickly, grabbed the phone, but instead of calling 911, he first called his ex-girlfriend, Holly Gaff. Richard said to Holly, "I choked her. I choked Francisca." He continued on, telling her not to mention the incident to anyone and that he did not want to go to jail. Richard also told Miss Gaff, "My meds are making me crazy, and I can't function. Thank you, though. If I need to come to your house, I will drive. I need time to think. I did something terrible." Miss Gaff proceeded to give Richard a phone number of a defense attorney that she knew, named Kenneth Padowitz. Instead of Richard, Kenneth called the police to let them know where the body was, but by the time the police had arrived, the body was already in the process of decomposition. This alone is indicative that the body had been there for quite some time. Responding officers found Marquinez lying face down on the bed. They had also spotted a bloodstain on one of the doors that led to the patio. The officers also spoke to Francisca's neighbors. According to the neighbor, she had knocked on her friend's door, which was shortly answered by Patterson, who had said that Francisca was sleeping. Later, detectives arrived on the scene, and they said they also found a bag in the kitchen that contained tissues and paper towels covered with blood and semen. They also found one of her fingers with blood on it, and it appeared that someone had tried to clean it, but clearly did a bad job. The next day, Richard Patterson called his daughter and said, "Your dad did something really bad last night. I'm so sorry." On May 15th, the trial began. Richard Patterson pleaded not guilty to the second-degree murder charge that was brought upon him. What may surprise you, and also surprise me, was the argument that Richard Patterson's defense team had conjured up. The argument being that Richard Patterson had too big of a penis and that it was the cause of Francisca's death. They claimed that its size could cause serious damage and even death. With such an outlandish claim, there had to be evidence to back up this theory, and because of the subject matter, there was quite a debate on how the jury would receive this evidence. While the judge, prosecution, and defense were arguing about this, questions were raised about how to show it. Should Mr. Patterson be erect? Should he be flaccid? How would the jury see it? How would Mr. Patterson stay erect if he were to show it to the jury? Would Richard be asked to get naked in front of them? Or should they make a mold of his penis? Maybe a picture of it. And trust me, this sounds just as absurd to me as it does to you, but it is necessary to the trial because this was the basis of Richard's defense team. This was also pertinent to the trial because this was the manner that Richard Patterson fully believed Francisca had died. You may find yourself asking, why does this matter? Shouldn't an autopsy of Miss Marquinez reveal her true cause of death, and that Richard was either lying or telling the truth? Unfortunately, however, Marquinez's body had been decomposed to the point of discoloration. This meant that it made it impossible to find any defensive wounds or bruises on her that would indicate some form of struggle or altercation. Broward County Medical Examiner Dr. Iori Boyko testified that by the time the police had arrived at her apartment and found her body, Marquinez had been dead at least 24 hours. However, it was more likely that she had been dead for 48 hours or more. Something to point out is that her neck bone and neck cartilage had both remained intact, which often isn't the case in the event of someone choking to death with their hands or some other aggressive method of strangulation. After the autopsy was done, there was no definitive method of Marquinez's death. They didn't know if she had choked to death, had a heart attack, brain aneurysm, you name it, they couldn't find it. With the lack of evidence of any sort of struggle or altercation found on Miss Marquinez, combined with the fact that they could not find out how she died, the man who claimed his penis choked his girlfriend to death because it was too big was found not guilty. He is shown here hugging his attorney after the verdict, and it appears that a massive weight had been lifted off of his shoulders. However, this is not what the Marquinez family wanted. They were distraught with the jury's decision and recorded saying, "This is not justice." I can understand what the Marquinez family is going through, and it's awful to think that that was your own mother's last moments. The jury did not have to witness Mr. Patterson's supposedly large package, but the prosecutors did. Kenneth Padowitz said that he provided 2 photographs to prosecutors, one of Patterson's penis next to a tape measure, and the other a frontal view of Patterson's naked body with his penis exposed. Padowitz later said he himself knew that Miss Marquinez did not die in such a ridiculous manner. However, since Richard Patterson fully believed that his girlfriend, Francisca Marquinez, had died this way, they decided to go with this argument. In the end, this crazy defense did not even matter, because it was the lack of evidence that found Richard Patterson not guilty. Before I get into my analysis, I want you to think for yourselves, was this man truly not guilty, or did he get away with murder? My analysis is as follows. For one, how do you not realize that your significant other is choking to death while engaging in that act? It should be pretty obvious, and the fact that Miss Marquinez was unresponsive when he went into the bathroom should have alarmed Mr. Patterson. Next, the phone calls. Why does Richard choose to call his ex-girlfriend and not immediately call the cops? This is the woman he supposedly loves. He should be wasting no time to get her help. That alone is suspicious, and the fact that his lawyer was the one to call the cops, not Richard, and it was after her body had been decomposed for quite some time, which makes the whole situation even more strange. Did Patterson and his lawyer plan this so that her body had decomposed to the point where gathering evidence would be near impossible? It could be true. However, we don't know anything for certain. And remember his message that he sent to his daughter? Your dad did a terrible thing, and I'm so sorry. That sounds like a man who's ashamed of what he has done. Let's not forget the interaction with the neighbor when Miss Marquinez was supposedly sleeping. Was she truly sleeping, or was Richard debating on what to do with her lifeless body? To further add on to the peculiar evidence, Richard also tried to clean up the mess, and we know this because of the tissues and paper towels that were found with blood and semen on them. That doesn't sound like something an innocent person would do. Certainly, it's a stressful situation, but if that's your loved one, you get them help as fast as possible. The situation definitely looks bad, but that should be the last thought on your mind. In my opinion, Mr. Patterson likely got away with murder. However, a guilty verdict needs to be beyond a reasonable doubt, and I suppose with the lack of evidence, the jury was not convinced. This concludes this tragic story. If you enjoyed this, please consider leaving a like and subscribe. There will be plenty of videos just like this coming your way. Thank you, and stay safe out there. This is The Unsettling.